The worst moment of Ethan Walker's life happened in 7 seconds. 7 seconds of accidentally witnessing something he was never supposed to see. 7 seconds that should have ended with him fired, blacklisted, and destroyed. Instead, those 7 humiliating seconds trapped a broke single father and a ruthless billionaire CEO in the most dangerous collaboration of their lives, one that would either save them both or ruin everything they'd spent years protecting. This is the story of how one catastrophic mistake outside an elite nightclub became the beginning of something neither of them saw coming. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Ethan Walker was 32 years old and exhausted in a way that coffee couldn't fix anymore. He stood in the cramped bathroom of his apartment at 6:47 a.m. on a Friday morning, staring at his reflection in the mirror while his daughter Lily banged on the door, asking if her purple dinosaur shirt was clean. The bags under his eyes had bags. His paycheck-to-paycheck life had turned him into someone who counted minutes instead of dreaming about years. "Dad, my shirt! It's in the dryer, sweetheart. Give me 2 minutes." He splashed cold water on his face and tried to convince himself today would be different. It wouldn't be. Today would be exactly like every other day for the past 3 years since the divorce. A brutal sprint through traffic to drop Lily at school, 8 hours of grinding through spreadsheets at Meridian Industries while pretending he wasn't one emergency away from financial collapse, then racing back to pick up his daughter before the aftercare program started charging late fees he couldn't afford. Ethan pulled on his least wrinkled button-down shirt and checked his phone. 2 missed calls from his younger brother Kyle. He ignored them both. Kyle only called when he needed money, or when he'd done something stupid. Usually both. "Dad, I found it. Kate." Lily burst into the bathroom wearing the purple dinosaur shirt inside out and backwards, her blonde hair sticking up in 14 different directions. She grinned at him with 2 missing front teeth, and Ethan felt his chest tighten the way it always did when he looked at her. She was the only thing he'd done right in his entire messy life. "Shirt's backwards, kiddo. I know. I like it this way." "Of course you do." "Yeah, it's it." They ate cereal standing up in the kitchen because they were already running late. Lily talked nonstop about the upcoming school play where she was playing a tree, which she seemed unreasonably excited about. Ethan listened and nodded and tried not to think about the stack of past due bills sitting on the kitchen counter underneath a coffee mug. The electricity bill, the water bill, the notice from Lily's school about next semester's activity fees, the reminder that his car insurance was due in 6 days. Everything was always due. "Ready to go?" Ethan grabbed his keys and Lily's backpack in one motion, a move he'd perfected through 3 years of single-parent efficiency. "Can we get donuts?" "Not today, sweetheart." You always say not today." "I know. I'm sorry." "What?" Lily didn't argue. She just took his hand and followed him out to their beat-up Toyota Corolla that made a concerning rattling noise every time he accelerated past 40 miles per hour. She was used to "not today" by now. Ethan hated that. Traffic was a nightmare. Of course it was. Ethan white-knuckled the steering wheel while Lily sang along to some aggressively cheerful pop song on the radio. They made it to Riverside Elementary with 4 minutes to spare before the first bell. Lily kissed him on the cheek and bolted toward the entrance where her friend Emma was waiting. "Love you, Dad." "Love you too. Be good." She was already gone, disappearing into the crowd of kids swarming through the front doors. Ethan watched until he couldn't see her purple dinosaur shirt anymore, then merged back into traffic toward Meridian Industries. Work was work. Boring, necessary, soul-crushing work. Ethan spent the morning buried in performance reports for the marketing department, reviewing campaign analytics that all seemed to blur together after the first 90 minutes. His cubicle was gray, his coffee was cold. His coworker Jennifer stopped by twice to complain about her divorce lawyer, which Ethan tried to be sympathetic about, even though listening to someone else's divorce drama made him want to put his head through the monitor. "You're lucky you got out early," Jennifer said, leaning against his cubicle wall. "My ex is trying to claim I hid assets. Me. I drive a 2011 Honda Fit. That's rough." "How's Lily doing?" "She's good. Playing a tree in the school play." "That's adorable." It was. Ethan smiled despite himself and went back to his spreadsheet. Jennifer eventually wandered off, and the afternoon crawled forward at the pace of a dying snail. At 4:47 p.m., his phone buzzed. Kyle again. 5 missed calls now. Ethan finally answered, "What's wrong?" "Ethan, hey man, don't be mad. What did you do?" "I just need a small favor." "How much?" "It's not about money this time, I swear. I'm at Vertex and I got into a situation." Ethan's blood pressure spiked. Vertex was one of those obnoxiously upscale nightclubs downtown where people paid $40 for a cocktail and the velvet ropes kept out anyone who wasn't rich or famous or connected. Kyle had no business being there. "What kind of situation?" "I might have tried to skip out on a bar tab and they're not letting me leave and I really need you to. Come down here because I can't call mom and dad again after last time." "You're 26 years old." Kyle. I know, I messed up. I'm an idiot. Please just come get me before they call the cops or something." Ethan closed his eyes and counted to 5. He wanted to say no. He should say no. Kyle needed to learn that actions had consequences, and Ethan couldn't keep bailing him out of every stupid decision. But he was still his little brother. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Do not leave that club." Thank you. I owe you, sure." Ethan hung up and grabbed his jacket. He sent a quick text to Mrs. Ramirez next door, asking if she could pick up Lily from aftercare, offering to pay her back this weekend. Mrs. Ramirez immediately replied with 3 heart emojis and told him not to worry about it. Ethan added her to the long list of people he owed favors to and headed for the elevator. 37 minutes later, Ethan pulled up outside Vertex. The place was everything he expected and hated. A line of beautiful people in expensive clothes waited behind velvet ropes, while 2 massive bouncers decided who was worth letting inside. Bass-heavy music thumped through the walls. A valet tried to take Ethan's keys but backed off when he saw the Toyota's condition. Ethan walked past the line and straight to the bouncer. "I'm here to pick up my brother, Kyle Walker. He's inside." "Borshem." The bouncer looked him up and down slowly, taking in Ethan's wrinkled work shirt and exhausted face. "You're not on the list." "I don't need to be on the list. I'm not staying. I'm just grabbing my idiot brother and leaving." "Then your idiot brother can walk out on his own. He owes money. I'm here to pay it and take him home." The bouncer's expression didn't change. "Wait here." He disappeared inside. Ethan stood on the sidewalk feeling every disapproving stare from the people waiting in line. A woman in a dress that probably cost more than his rent whispered something to her friend, and they both laughed. Ethan checked his watch. 5:31 p.m. He needed to be home by 6:30 to make dinner and help Lily with her homework. The bouncer finally returned with Kyle, who looked sheepish and drunk and exactly like someone who would try to skip out on a bar tab. His hair was a mess. His shirt was untucked. He gave Ethan an apologetic grin that didn't land. "Hey man, thanks for coming. How much do you owe?" $380. $380? It was bottle service. "I didn't realize..." Ethan wanted to shove him into traffic. Instead, he followed the bouncer inside to settle the tab, which meant walking through Vertex's absurdly over-designed main room where strobe lights and fog machines made it nearly impossible to see where you were going. The bar was on the far side. Ethan pushed through the crowd, keeping Kyle in front of him so he couldn't disappear again. People danced and shouted over the music and spilled drinks on each other without caring. Ethan felt about 1,000 years old. They reached the bar. Ethan pulled out his credit card and prayed it wouldn't get declined. $380 for Walker, he told the bartender. The bartender ran the card. Ethan held his breath. The charge went through. He felt something in his chest unclench slightly. "You're lucky I love you," Ethan said to Kyle. "Let's go." "I know. I'm sorry. I really am." They turned to leave, and that's when everything went catastrophically, humiliatingly wrong. Ethan didn't see her coming. The woman in the midnight blue dress moving fast through the crowd, her face tight with anger, her phone pressed to her ear. She was stunning in that intimidating way that made you aware of your own inadequacy just by standing near her. Dark hair pulled back severely, sharp features, eyes that could probably cut glass. She wasn't paying attention, neither was Ethan. They collided. Not hard. Just enough to throw her off balance. Just enough to make her stumble backward into the edge of a booth where someone had apparently spilled an entire bottle of champagne. Time slowed down. The woman's heel caught the wet floor. Her phone went flying. She reached out to catch herself and grabbed the edge of the booth. But her dress, that elegant, expensive, perfectly tailored midnight blue dress, caught on something sharp. Ethan heard the rip. It was loud enough to cut through the music. A horrible tearing sound that made everyone within 10 feet turn and look. The dress split straight down the side seam from hip to hem. For one frozen moment, the woman just stood there in shock, her hand still gripping the booth, her dress hanging open in a way that exposed far more than anyone was supposed to see under the club's harsh lighting. Then her eyes met Ethan's. He wanted to die. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him completely. He'd never seen someone's expression shift from shock to pure humiliated rage so fast. "I'm so sorry," Ethan started. "I didn't see—" Someone nearby laughed, then someone else. Then 3 more people pulled out their phones. The woman's face went white, then red. She clutched the torn fabric of her dress and spun toward the crowd. "Put those away. Now, hick." Her voice was cold enough to freeze blood. The phones disappeared immediately. People actually backed up, but the damage was done. Ethan had just witnessed something private and humiliating involving a woman who clearly was not accustomed to being humiliated, and now they were both standing in the middle of Vertex's main room while dozens of people pretended not to stare. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said again, because he couldn't think of anything else to say. "Are you okay?" Us. The woman didn't answer. She just looked at him with an expression that promised murder, grabbed her phone off the floor, and disappeared into the crowd holding her dress together with both hands. Kyle grabbed Ethan's arm. "Dude, do you know who that was?" "No." That was Victoria Sinclair. The name hit Ethan like cold water. Victoria Sinclair, as in Sinclair Enterprises, as in one of the most powerful business empires on the East Coast, as in the billionaire CEO whose face appeared in Forbes articles and whose company owned half the commercial real estate in the city, as in someone who could absolutely destroy Ethan's life without breaking a sweat. "Oh no!" "Yeah, oh no." Ethan felt his stomach drop into his shoes. "I need to leave, right now." They pushed back through the crowd toward the exit. Ethan's hands were shaking. His mind was racing through every possible worst-case scenario. She could find out where he worked. She could get him fired. She could— His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ethan almost didn't answer. "Hello? Is this Ethan Walker?" A woman's voice. Cool, professional, terrifying. "Yes? Ish. This is Diana Chen, executive assistant to Victoria Sinclair. Ms. Sinclair would like to speak with you regarding tonight's incident. Are you still at Vertex?" Ethan stopped walking. Kyle bumped into him from behind. Yes, I'm leaving right now. I'm so sorry about what happened. Ms. Sinclair is in the private lounge upstairs. She's expecting you." "I really don't think—" "It wasn't a request, Mr. Walker." The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone. Kyle stared at him. What did they say? "She wants to see me." "Are you serious?" "I'm a dead man." Maybe she just wants an apology. Nobody summons someone to a private lounge just to accept an apology. Kyle. But Ethan went anyway because what choice did he have? Refusing would probably make things worse. Maybe if he apologized enough, if he groveled enough, she'd let him walk away with his life intact. The bouncer led him upstairs to a door guarded by another bouncer who looked even less friendly. They checked Ethan's ID, made him leave his phone in a lockbox, and finally allowed him into a dimly lit lounge that smelled like expensive leather and wood polish. Victoria Sinclair sat alone on a white couch, wearing a long black coat that covered the ruined dress. Her hair was still perfect. Her makeup was still perfect. She looked like someone who could buy and sell Ethan's entire existence and still have enough money left over for lunch. She didn't stand when he entered. She just gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." Ethan sat. For 10 seconds, she said nothing. She just studied him with those sharp, calculating eyes that made him feel like an insect under a microscope. Finally, she spoke. Ethan Walker, 32 years old, works in marketing analytics at Meridian Industries. Divorced, 1 daughter. Currently 3 months behind on credit card payments and 2 weeks away from having your car repossessed. Ethan's blood turned to ice. "How do you— I own the company that holds your auto loan. It took my assistant 4 minutes to pull your file." Victoria leaned forward slightly. "I know everything about you, Mr. Walker. And right now, I'm deciding whether to ruin your life or not. Ethan's throat was dry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't care what you meant to do. What matters is what happened. And what happened is that you humiliated me in front of 200 people, some of whom are business partners, some of whom are competitors, and some of whom would love nothing more than to see me look weak. It was an accident. I know. That's why you're still breathing. Victoria stood, walked to the bar, and poured herself 2 fingers of something amber and expensive. She didn't offer Ethan anything. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to receive a transfer to Meridian's Executive Strategy Division. You'll be working directly on the Gravitas campaign. Ethan blinked. What? Gravitas Hotels, international luxury chain. They're launching a complete brand overhaul next quarter, and they're deciding between 3 firms to lead the campaign. Meridian is one of them. If we win Gravitas, it's worth $47 million over 3 years. I don't understand. Why would you? Because everyone at Vertex tonight saw you run into me. By tomorrow afternoon, every gossip blog in the city will be speculating about who you are and why Victoria Sinclair let some random man crash into her without immediately destroying him. Victoria took a slow sip of her drink. So I'm turning you into someone important, someone whose presence makes sense, someone whose career benefits from being associated with me. Ethan's head was spinning. You're putting me on your biggest campaign because people saw us collide in a nightclub? I'm putting you on my biggest campaign because it's the best way to control the narrative. You're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. And if you do well, everyone will assume I saw potential in you. If you fail, I'll fire you publicly and make sure you never work in this city again. Either way, I win. Bomb. She said it so casually, like she was describing the weather. And if I say no? Ethan asked quietly. Victoria smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Then you can go back to your struggling single-father life, and I'll make absolutely certain the struggle gets much, much worse. Your choice, Mr. Walker. It wasn't a choice. They both knew it. Ethan stood slowly. When do I start? Monday morning, 8 a.m., Meridian's executive floor. Diana will send you the details. Victoria set down her glass. Don't be late, and don't make me regret this. She dismissed him with a wave of her hand like he was a servant. Ethan walked out of the lounge, retrieved his phone, and made it all the way to his car before his hands started shaking again. He sat in the driver's seat staring at the steering wheel while Kyle bombarded him with questions from the passenger seat. What happened? What did she say? Are you fired? Are you okay? I'm not fired. Then what? She's promoting me. Kyle's jaw dropped. What? Ethan started the car. The engine rattled. I don't want to talk about it. He drove home in silence while his mind raced through everything that had just happened. Victoria Sinclair had just turned his life upside down because of 7 seconds of accidental humiliation, and now he was trapped working on a multi-million-dollar campaign for a woman who clearly viewed him as either a tool or a problem to be managed. He had no idea which was worse. Mrs. Ramirez had already fed Lily dinner by the time Ethan got home. He thanked her profusely and promised to repay her somehow, then spent the next hour helping Lily practice her lines for the school play, even though she was just a tree and only had 2 lines. I am a tree, Lily said dramatically, spreading her arms wide. I give shade to all who rest beneath my branches. Perfect. You're going to be the best tree in the whole play. Do you really think so? I know so. After Lily went to bed, Ethan sat at the kitchen table staring at the stack of bills and tried to process what had just happened to his life. Monday morning, he'd be walking into Meridian's executive floor to work on a campaign worth more than he'd earned in 10 years. He should have been excited, terrified, but excited. Instead, he just felt trapped. His phone buzzed. Email from Diana Chen with Monday's schedule, security clearance instructions, and a folder of confidential documents marked Gravitas Campaign. Executive eyes only. Ethan opened the first document and started reading. Then he kept reading. Then he didn't stop reading until 2 a.m. because the scope of this campaign was so massive and complex that he couldn't afford to walk in Monday morning looking unprepared. Victoria Sinclair had thrown him into the deep end. Now, He had 3 days to learn how to swim. Monday morning arrived too fast, and Ethan hadn't slept more than 4 hours total since Friday night. He dropped Lily off at school wearing his best suit, which wasn't saying much considering he'd bought it 6 years ago for job interviews, and it still looked like something from a discount rack. Lily had noticed he was nervous.
"Why are you wearing fancy clothes?" she'd asked over breakfast. "New project at work, sweetheart. Is it scary?" "A little bit,
She'd hugged him extra tight before running into school, and Ethan had sat in his car for 3 full minutes trying to convince himself he could do this. Then he'd driven to Meridian Industries with his stomach in knots and his hands gripping the steering wheel too hard. The executive floor looked nothing like the gray cubicle farm where Ethan normally worked. Everything up here was glass and chrome and expensive. The receptionist who checked his credentials looked like she belonged in a fashion magazine. The security clearance process involved 3 different badge scans and a biometric palm reader that made Ethan feel like he was entering a government facility. Diana Chen met him in the lobby at exactly 7:58 a.m. She was maybe 40, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit with the kind of terrifying efficiency that suggested she could organize a military coup before lunch. She looked at Ethan the way someone might examine a stray dog that had wandered into their home. "Mr. Walker, follow me." She didn't wait to see if he would comply. She just turned and walked, her heels clicking against the marble floor in a rhythm that sounded vaguely threatening. Ethan followed. "You'll be working in Conference Room C with the strategy team," Diana said without looking back. "Ms. Sinclair has meetings until 11, at which point she'll join you for the Gravitas presentation review. The creative director is Marcus Chen, no relation, and the lead analyst is Rebecca Ortiz. They've both been briefed on your transfer." What exactly were they told? That Ms. Sinclair personally selected you for the campaign after reviewing your performance metrics. Diana stopped at a set of double doors. They weren't told why, and you won't tell them either. Is that clear? Crystal. Good. The team has been working on Gravitas for 6 weeks. You have 2 hours to catch up before the presentation review. Don't waste them. She opened the doors and gestured him inside. Conference Room C was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A table that could seat 20 people dominated the center of the room. 2 people were already there, surrounded by laptops and presentation boards and enough coffee cups to suggest they'd been working all night. The man looked up first. Late 30s, designer glasses, the kind of calculated casual dress that probably cost more than Ethan's car payment. He stood and extended his hand with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ethan Walker, Marcus Chen, creative director. Welcome to the chaos." Ethan shook his hand. "Thanks. Happy to be here." That was a lie, but Marcus didn't need to know that. The woman was younger, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and an expression that suggested she was permanently exhausted. She didn't stand, just gave Ethan a brief nod. "Rebecca Ortiz, lead analyst. You're the guy Victoria personally pulled from analytics?" "That's me. Lucky you." Her tone suggested she thought it was anything but luck. Marcus clapped his hands together. "Well, let's get you up to speed. Gravitas Hotels, international luxury chain, 43 properties across 11 countries. Annual revenue around 800 million. They're doing a complete brand overhaul because their current image is basically where rich people went in 1997, and they want to compete with the modern luxury market." He pulled up a presentation on the main screen. Images of Gravitas properties appeared, elegant but dated, the kind of places that screamed old money and tradition, but not innovation. "The pitch is in 3 weeks, Rebecca added. "We're competing against 2 other firms. Winner gets a 3-year contract worth 47 million. Loser gets nothing and looks incompetent. No pressure." Ethan sat down and opened his laptop. "What's our angle? We'll look at it." Marcus grinned. "Reinvention without abandonment. We're not telling them to burn down their legacy. We're showing them how to evolve it. New target demographics, fresh visual identity, digital integration, experiential luxury that appeals to younger high-net-worth travelers while keeping their traditional clientele happy." Sounds impossible. It basically is. That's why it's fun. For the next 2 hours, Ethan absorbed more information than his brain could reasonably process. Market research data, competitor analysis, demographic breakdowns, budget projections, creative mock-ups, social media strategies. Marcus and Rebecca tag-teamed the presentation, and Ethan took notes so fast his hand cramped. He was definitely drowning. But he was drowning in a way that felt productive, which was something. At 10:47 a.m., Diana appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Sinclair will be here in 5 minutes. Make sure everything is ready." Rebecca and Marcus immediately shifted into high gear and eat, arranging presentation materials and pulling up specific slides and generally looking like people who did not want to disappoint their boss. Ethan just tried to stay out of the way. Victoria Sinclair walked in at exactly 11 a.m. She looked different in daylight. Still intimidating, still perfect, but somehow sharper. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent and carried herself like someone who owned everything she looked at. Her eyes swept the room, landing on Ethan for half a second before moving on. "Let's begin," she said, sitting at the head of the table. Marcus launched into the presentation. He was good, confident, articulate, hitting every point with practiced precision. Rebecca jumped in with data points and analytics when needed. Together, they painted a compelling picture of how Meridian could transform Gravitas into a brand that dominated the modern luxury market. Ethan mostly stayed quiet and tried to look competent. Victoria asked questions. A lot of questions. She dismantled weak arguments and demanded better data and pointed out logical inconsistencies that Marcus had to scramble to address. She wasn't cruel about it, just ruthlessly efficient. This was someone who'd built an empire by never accepting anything less than excellence. An hour into the review, she turned to Ethan. "Mr. Walker, you've been quiet." Every eye in the room swiveled toward him. Ethan felt his pulse spike. "Just listening and learning," he said carefully. "I didn't bring you onto this team to listen. I brought you here to contribute. So contribute." It wasn't a request. Ethan glanced at the presentation on screen, a proposed social media campaign targeting millennials and Gen Z luxury travelers. It was fine, competent, but something about it felt off. "The social strategy is solid," Ethan said slowly, "but I think we're missing something." Victoria's expression didn't change. "Continue." "Hey, we're positioning Gravitas as aspirational luxury for younger travelers, which makes sense. But every luxury brand does that now. We're not differentiating." Ethan pulled up one of the demographic breakdowns on his laptop. "Look at the data. Gravitas's current customer base is heavily weighted toward business travelers and older high-net-worth individuals. They're loyal, they spend money, and this rebrand might alienate them." "That's already been addressed," Rebecca said, an edge in her voice. "We're maintaining classic luxury touchpoints while adding modern elements." "I know, but I don't think that's enough." Ethan was committed now, so he kept going. "What if instead of trying to balance two demographics, we lean into the thing that makes Gravitas actually different? They're not trendy. They're not trying to be the hot new thing. They're timeless. So why not position them as the anti-trend? The place you go when you're tired of everything being designed for Instagram. Real luxury, quiet luxury. The kind of place where turning off your phone is the whole point." Marcus frowned. "That's basically telling young travelers to stay away." "No, I'm telling them there's a different kind of status symbol. Not flexing online, just being somewhere genuinely exclusive." Ethan looked at Victoria, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. The social media campaign shouldn't be about making Gravitas look cool. It should be about making everywhere else look exhausting. The room went silent. Then Victoria leaned back in her chair. "Show me what that looks like by end of day Wednesday." Ethan blinked. "What?" "A full creative brief, messaging framework, 3 sample campaign concepts. If it's good, we incorporate it into the pitch. If it's not, we stick with the current strategy." She stood. "Meeting's over. Back to work." She left without another word, Diana trailing behind her. Marcus stared at Ethan. "Did you just pitch a completely different strategic direction in front of Victoria Sinclair?" "I think so." "That was either brilliant or career suicide, possibly both." Rebecca was already typing furiously on her laptop. "If we're doing this, we need to move fast. Wednesday is 2 days away, and I need data to back up every claim you just made. Can you get it?" "I can try. But if this falls apart, it's your neck on the line, not mine." "Fair enough." The next 48 hours were brutal. Ethan worked later than he'd ever worked in his life, building out the creative brief while Rebecca pulled consumer research data and Marcus sketched campaign concepts. They ordered food to the conference room and ate without tasting it. Ethan called Mrs. Ramirez 3 times to ask if she could pick up Lily from school, and each time she said yes without hesitation, even though he was absolutely taking advantage of her kindness at this point. Tuesday night, Ethan finally got home at 10:30 p.m. Lily was already asleep. Mrs. Ramirez was on his couch watching a telenovela. She ate dinner, did her homework, and practiced her tree lines. Mrs. Ramirez reported, "She asked where you were." "What did you tell her?" "That you were working hard to give her a good life, which is true, yes?" Ethan felt something crack in his chest. "Yeah, it's true." "Then don't feel guilty. She's a good girl. She understands." Yeah. But Ethan did feel guilty. He felt guilty when he kissed Lily's forehead while she slept, and guilty again when he stayed up until 2 a.m. refining the creative brief instead of going to bed. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold. Ethan had maybe 3 hours of sleep and his eyes felt like sandpaper. He dropped Lily off at school, and she asked if he'd be able to come to her tree rehearsal on Friday afternoon. "I'll try, sweetheart. You said you'd try last time too, and I know. I'm sorry. Work has been crazy." Lily looked at him with those big, serious eyes that always made him feel like the worst father in the world. "Is it because of the lady?" Ethan paused. "What lady?" "Mrs. Ramirez said you're working for an important lady now. It's complicated, kiddo." "Do you like her?" "It's not about liking her. She's my boss." "But do you like her?" Ethan had no idea how to answer that. Victoria Sinclair was terrifying and brilliant and had essentially blackmailed him into this campaign. But there was something about the way she demanded excellence that made him want to prove he was capable of delivering it. "I respect her," Ethan finally said. "That's different." Lily seemed satisfied with that answer. She hugged him and ran into school, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. The creative brief review happened at 2 p.m. in Victoria's office. Her office was exactly what Ethan expected. Enormous, minimalist, with a view that made you feel like you owned the city. Victoria sat behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of black marble. Marcus and Rebecca flanked Ethan as he walked through the revised strategy. He tried not to sound nervous. He mostly failed. "The core concept is the refuge," Ethan explained, pulling up mock-ups on his tablet. "Gravitas isn't competing in the attention economy. It's offering an escape from it. The messaging is built around disconnection as luxury, time as the ultimate status symbol, spaces designed for presence, not performance." "Well, He showed her the sample campaigns, print ads featuring empty hotel lounges with the tagline, "Where the world can't find you." Social media concepts that were deliberately quiet and understated. A video treatment that was just 45 seconds of silence and beautiful architecture. Victoria studied each concept without expression. The silence stretched so long that Ethan started mentally updating his resume. Finally, she looked up. "This is better than what we had." "Bachumki." "Mano." Ethan felt his shoulders drop 3 inches. "Marcus, work with Ethan to integrate this into the main pitch deck. Rebecca, I want demographic overlays showing which customer segments respond strongest to disconnection messaging." Full presentation review Monday morning. Victoria turned back to her computer screen, effectively dismissing them. "Good work, Mr. Walker." It wasn't effusive praise, but coming from Victoria Sinclair, it felt like a standing ovation. Marcus clapped Ethan on the shoulder as they left the office. "Okay, maybe she was right about you. Don't jinx it. Too late. You're officially part of the team now, which means you're stuck with us until this pitch is over." The next 2 weeks were a blur. Ethan worked longer hours than he thought humanly possible. The campaign consumed everything, nights, weekends, every spare moment he could find. He missed Lily's tree rehearsal. He missed parent-teacher conferences. He survived on coffee and takeout, and the occasional 3-hour power nap on the conference room couch. Mrs. Ramirez became his lifeline, picking up Lily from school almost every day and feeding her dinner and helping with homework when Ethan couldn't be there. He tried to pay her, but she refused every time. "You can pay me back when you're rich and famous," she said with a laugh. "For now, just be good to that little girl when you see her." Ethan tried, but when you see her was becoming less and less frequent. Victoria, meanwhile, was everywhere. She reviewed every piece of the presentation, challenged every assumption, and pushed the team harder than Ethan thought possible. She worked later than anyone, sent emails at 3 a.m., and never seemed to get tired. One Thursday night, Ethan was alone in the conference room at 11 p.m., trying to finalize the budget projections when Victoria walked in. "You're still here," she said. Ethan looked up from his laptop. "So are you." "I'm always here." "That's different." She poured herself coffee from the pot that had been sitting there since afternoon and definitely tasted like battery acid by now. She drank it anyway. "How's the daughter?" The question caught Ethan off guard. "Lily? She's fine." "You've been working late every night for 2 weeks. That can't be easy with an 8-year-old at home." "I have help. My neighbor's been amazing." Victoria nodded slowly, staring at her coffee cup. "I don't have children. I never wanted them. Too much sacrifice required." She paused. "That probably sounds cold. It sounds honest. Most people lie when they say they want both, career and family. You can't excel at both simultaneously. One always suffers." Victoria looked at him directly. "Ah, c'est pas." Victoria looked. "Which one are you sacrificing right now?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. "Lily asked me if I liked you," he said instead. "The important lady I'm working for." "What did you tell her?" "That I respect you, that it's not about liking." Something flickered across Victoria's face. Surprise, maybe, or something close to it. Then it was gone. "Your daughter is perceptive," she said. "Most people either fear me or want something from me. Respect is rarer. You've earned it." "Have I? Or did I just threaten you into compliance?" "Both can be true." Victoria almost smiled. Almost. "Get some sleep, Mr. Walker. We have 3 days until the pitch, and I need you sharp." She left without waiting for a response. Ethan sat there for another 10 minutes, thinking about that conversation. Victoria Sinclair was still terrifying, still ruthless, but there was something underneath all that ice, something lonely and human that she worked very hard to hide. He finally packed up his laptop and drove home at midnight. Lily was asleep. Ethan stood in her doorway watching her breathe, clutching her stuffed dinosaur, completely oblivious to the fact that her father was slowly drowning under the weight of a campaign that might make or break both their futures. He wanted to wake her up and apologize. He wanted to quit. He wanted to turn back time to before he walked into that nightclub and crashed into Victoria Sinclair and set all of this in motion. But he couldn't do any of those things. So instead, he went to bed and set his alarm for 5 a.m. and prepared to do it all over again. The pitch day arrived faster than anyone was ready for. Gravitas Hotels sent a delegation of 5 executives to Meridian's headquarters. Ethan stood in the conference room at 7:30 a.m. watching Marcus and Rebecca arrange presentation materials for the 100th time while his stomach tried to eat itself from the inside. Victoria walked in at 7:45 a.m. looking completely calm, which was somehow more unsettling than if she'd looked nervous. "Final checks," she said crisply. "Marcus, creative deck. Ready. Rebecca, data visualization. Ready? Ethan, messaging framework. Ready." Victoria's eyes swept the room. "Then let's go win $47 million. The Gravitas executives were exactly what Ethan expected. Polished, skeptical, and wealthy enough that they didn't need to pretend to be impressed by anything. The CEO was a woman named Caroline Hammond, who'd built Gravitas from 12 properties to 43 over 20 years. She had the kind of sharp intelligence that reminded Ethan of Victoria, which was probably not a coincidence. Marcus led the presentation. He was brilliant, weaving together the creative concepts and market research and strategic vision into a narrative that made Gravitas' transformation feel inevitable. Rebecca backed him up with data that was airtight, and Ethan stood there trying to look confident while his heart tried to punch its way out of his chest. When they got to the refuge campaign concept, Ethan stepped forward. "Ms. Hammond, your brand isn't broken," he said. "It's misunderstood. You're not competing with boutique hotels trying to manufacture authenticity on social media. You're offering something they can't. Genuine disconnection in a world that never stops demanding attention. That's not a weakness to apologize for. That's your competitive advantage." He walked through the campaign concepts, the quiet luxury positioning, the anti-trend messaging, the way they could own the space between traditional prestige and manufactured cool. Caroline Hammond watched without expression, which told Ethan absolutely nothing. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is different from what the other firms proposed. Good different or bad different? Marcus asked. I'm not sure yet. Caroline looked at Victoria. This is risky. You're essentially telling us to position ourselves against the entire contemporary luxury market. Victoria didn't hesitate. No, I'm telling you to let it. Every other brand is chasing the same tired playbook. You have the opportunity to create the next evolution, but only if you're willing to commit fully. And if we commit and it fails, then we both lose. But if we don't commit and you spend 3 years doing what everyone else is doing, you'll fade into irrelevance slowly instead of failing fast. One of those outcomes is recoverable. The other isn't. The room went silent. Caroline smiled for the first time. I appreciate the honesty. They asked questions for another 45 minutes. Some were about logistics, some about budget, some about implementation timelines. The Meridian team answered everything without hesitation. Finally, Caroline stood. We'll be in touch by end of week with our decision. Thank you for the presentation. That was it. No dramatic reveal, no immediate answer. Just a polite dismissal and 5 executives walking out the door. The moment they left, Marcus collapsed into a chair. I can't tell if that went well or if we just bombed spectacularly. It went well, Victoria said. Caroline Hammond doesn't smile at presentations she's planning to reject. Are you sure? No, but we did our job. The rest is out of our hands. The waiting was somehow worse than the preparation. For 3 days, everyone on the team jumped every time a phone rang or an email arrived. Ethan tried to focus on other work, but his brain kept replaying the pitch, analyzing every moment, wondering if they'd done enough. Thursday afternoon, Diana appeared at the conference room doors. Ms. Sinclair wants to see the team in her office. Now. They all stood at once and practically ran down the hallway. Diana's expression gave nothing away, which meant either they'd won or lost spectacularly enough that Victoria wanted to deliver the news personally. Victoria was standing by her window when they entered, looking out at the city. We got it, she said without turning around. Caroline Hammond called 10 minutes ago. Gravitas chose Meridian, $47 million contract, 3-year term starting next quarter. Bis bafamas is. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. We won? We won. Rebecca hugged Marcus. Marcus hugged Ethan. Ethan just stood there, feeling like his brain had been unplugged. They'd actually done it. They'd won the biggest contract of Meridian's year, maybe the biggest in 5 years, and Ethan had been part of it. Victoria finally turned around. Good work, all of you. Take tomorrow off. You've earned it. Her eyes landed on Ethan. Mr. Walker, stay for a moment. Marcus and Rebecca congratulated him on the way out, still buzzing with adrenaline. Then it was just Ethan and Victoria in her enormous office with the city sprawling below them. You delivered, Victoria said simply. We all did. Don't be modest. It doesn't suit you. She walked to her desk and pulled out a folder. Your transfer is being made permanent. You're officially part of the executive strategy team. Significant pay increase, better benefits, stock options. Diana has the paperwork. Ethan took the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. Thank you. You earned it. I don't give anything away. Victoria paused. How's your daughter? The question still felt strange coming from her. I haven't seen her much lately. Then go see her now. Take her somewhere. Celebrate. For the first time since Ethan met her, Victoria's expression softened slightly. You worked hard enough to deserve a few hours with your family. It wasn't quite kindness, but it was close enough. Ethan left Victoria's office, picked up Lily early from school, and took her to the arcade she'd been begging to visit for months. She beat him at every game and ate her weight in pizza and laughed so hard she got the hiccups. I missed you, Dad, she said on the drive home. I missed you too, sweetheart. Is your work project done now? This one is. There will probably be others. Will you still be gone all the time? Ethan looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. I'll try not to be. Lily smiled. She had pizza sauce on her face.
Okay. That night, after Lily went to bed,
Ethan sat on his couch and opened the folder Victoria had given him. The pay increase was more than significant. It was life-changing. Enough to cover all the past due bills, fix his car, maybe even save something for emergencies. For the first time in 3 years, Ethan Walker wasn't drowning. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt trapped in a different way, indebted to a woman who'd forced him into her world and then made it impossible to leave. Victoria Sinclair had saved his career and his financial life, but she'd done it for her own reasons, and Ethan still wasn't sure what those reasons actually were. His phone buzzed. Email from Victoria, sent at 11:47 p.m. Monday morning, new project. Be ready. Ethan stared at the message and realized with absolute certainty that his life would never be simple again. The new project turned out to be 3 new projects, all running simultaneously, all equally demanding. Ethan spent the next 6 weeks living inside Meridian's executive floor, while his personal life slowly disintegrated around the edges. He saw Lily in the mornings before school, and sometimes made it home before she went to bed. Mrs. Ramirez stopped accepting his apologies and just started keeping a spare key to his apartment so she could let herself in when needed. "You're going to owe me a vacation when this is over," she told him one night when he stumbled home at 9:30 to find her folding his laundry. "I'll owe you a house," Ethan said. "I'll settle for you being present for that little girl more than 3 hours a week." She wasn't wrong. Lily had stopped asking when he'd be home and started asking if he'd be home, which was somehow worse. Her school play was in 2 weeks, and Ethan had already missed both dress rehearsals. She was still playing a tree. She still only had 2 lines. But it mattered to her, which meant it should matter to him. It did matter to him. He just couldn't figure out how to make his schedule reflect that. Work had become everything. The Gravitas win had put Meridian on the map, and suddenly every major client wanted the team that had pulled it off. Victoria was relentless about capitalizing on the momentum, taking on campaigns that other firms would have considered impossible. And somehow, Ethan had become essential to all of it. Marcus started calling him Victoria's secret weapon, which was meant as a compliment but felt uncomfortably accurate. Rebecca just looked at him with a mixture of respect and pity, like she couldn't decide if he was brilliant or cursed. Ethan was starting to think it was both. He was also starting to notice things about Victoria that he hadn't seen before. The way she rubbed her temples when she thought no one was looking. The way she took her coffee black at 8 a.m. but added sugar after 6 p.m. The way she never talked about anything personal, never mentioned friends or family or a life outside these walls. One Friday night in late October, Ethan was working alone in the conference room at 10 p.m. when Victoria appeared with 2 takeout containers. "You haven't eaten," she said, setting one in front of him. Ethan looked up from his laptop. "How do you know?" "Because I haven't eaten, and we've been in back-to-back meetings since noon." She sat across from him and opened her container, some kind of Thai food that smelled better than anything Ethan had eaten in days. Also, you get this specific expression when you're hungry and trying to ignore it. "I have a hungry expression." You have several expressions. Most of them involve looking overwhelmed. Ethan opened his food. Pad Thai, still hot. "Is this pity?" "This is pragmatism. You're useless when your blood sugar crashes." Victoria ate in silence for a moment, then said, "Your daughter's play is next Friday." Ethan nearly choked on his noodles. "How do you know that?" "You mentioned it to Rebecca 3 weeks ago. I have a good memory." "That's mildly terrifying." "Well, I prefer thorough." Victoria set down her fork. "You should go." "I'm planning to go." "No, you're planning to try to go. That's different." She pulled up her tablet and made a few quick notes. "I'm blocking your calendar from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. next Friday. Non-negotiable. If anyone schedules over it, Diana will relocate them to a different dimension." Ethan stared at her. "You're giving me the afternoon off for a school play?" "I'm ensuring one of my key team members doesn't burn out before the Hartwell pitch. Also, your daughter is 8. She won't be 8 forever. Miss enough of these moments and eventually she stops inviting you." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her voice shifted slightly. "That's not a mistake you can undo." It sounded less like advice and more like experience. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. Victoria waved it off. "Don't read into it. I'm protecting my investment. But she didn't meet his eyes when she said it. They ate in silence for a while. The building was mostly empty at this hour, just the hum of ventilation and the distant sound of a cleaning crew somewhere on another floor. Outside the windows, the city glowed with 1,000 lights that made it look less lonely than it actually was. "Do you ever go home?" Ethan asked. Victoria looked up. "I'm sorry?" "Home. Do you have one? Or do you just live here?" "I have a penthouse in Monarch Tower, 23rd floor. I sleep there occasionally." "That's not what I asked." Victoria studied him for a long moment. "No, I suppose it's not." She closed her takeout container even though she'd only eaten half. "I bought that penthouse 7 years ago because the real estate agent said it was a smart investment. I've never decorated it. I don't cook there. I don't entertain there. It's just a place I sleep when I remember to leave the office." She paused. "So, no, Mr. Walker, I don't go home. I go to a building I own and sleep in a bed I bought and wake up thinking about work. That's what I chose." "But, yeah, maltratan." "Sounds lonely." "It's efficient." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." Victoria's jaw tightened slightly. "Do you have a point?" "Just an observation." "Then observe less and eat more. We have an early meeting tomorrow." She stood and left without another word, taking her half-eaten dinner with her. Ethan sat there for another 10 minutes, thinking about a woman who'd built an empire and a penthouse and a life that didn't include anything except work. He wondered if she was happy. He wondered if she even knew what happiness looked like anymore. Then he packed up his laptop and drove home to his daughter. The following week was chaos. The Hartwell Corporation campaign was turning into a disaster. The client kept changing requirements, the creative direction was shifting daily, and everyone on the team was running on fumes and spite. Ethan worked 16-hour days and still felt like he was falling behind. But Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., his calendar was blocked solid and Diana personally escorted him out of the building. "Ms. Sinclair's orders," she said when Ethan protested. "You're not allowed back until Monday. There's still work to finish." "There will always be work to finish. That's how work operates. Go watch your daughter be a tree." Ethan went. Riverside Elementary's auditorium was packed with parents holding phones and cameras, all waiting to watch their children perform a play that would definitely run too long and feature at least 3 technical difficulties. Ethan found a seat near the middle and texted Mrs. Ramirez to let her know he'd actually made it. She sent back 4 celebration emojis and a photo of Lily in her tree costume, brown felt trunk with green construction paper leaves glued all over it. She looked ridiculous and adorable, and so happy that Ethan felt his chest tighten. The play started 20 minutes late because the curtain mechanism jammed. 3 kids forgot their lines. 1 kid cried. Another kid waved at his mom in the middle of his scene. It was a beautiful disaster. Lily was perfect. She stood completely still during her 2 lines, delivered them with unexpected dramatic flair, and didn't fidget once. When she said, "I give shade to all who rest beneath my branches," she said it like she meant it. Ethan took about 60 photos and definitely wasn't crying. After the play, Lily found him in the crowd and launched herself at him with enough force to nearly knock him over. "Did you see me?" "I saw everything. You were amazing." "I didn't mess up at all." "Not even a little bit. Best tree in the entire forest." Lily beamed, then her expression shifted to something more serious. "You almost didn't come." "But I did come." "Mrs. Ramirez said you weren't sure you could make it." Ethan knelt down so they were eye level. "I know I've been working a lot lately, too much. And I know I've missed things. But I'm here now, okay? And I'm not going anywhere for the rest of tonight. It's just you and me." "Promise?" "Promise." "Can we get ice cream?" "Hey, we can get so much ice cream you'll regret it." They went to the ice cream place Lily loved, the one with 37 flavors and toppings that cost extra, but Ethan didn't care. Lily got cookie dough with gummy bears and rainbow sprinkles. Ethan got coffee flavor because he was boring. They sat at a sticky table by the window and Lily told him everything about the play rehearsals and how Emma forgot her lines twice. But it was okay because the teacher helped her. And how being a tree was actually really hard because you had to stand so still. "I'm proud of you," Ethan said. "For being a tree?" "For being you." Lily smiled and got ice cream on her nose. Ethan wiped it off with a napkin and felt, for the first time in weeks, like maybe he was doing something right. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. "How was the play?" Ethan stared at the message, surprised she'd remembered. He typed back with one hand while Lily demolished her ice cream. She was perfect. Thank you for this. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Good. See you Monday. That should have been the end of it. But something about the exchange felt significant in a way Ethan couldn't quite name. Victoria Sinclair didn't text employees about their children's school plays. She didn't block calendars for personal events. She didn't care about anything except work and results in the next deal. Except apparently sometimes she did. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Ethan dropped Lily at school and headed to Meridian with his coffee and his laptop, and the vague sense that something was shifting in ways he didn't understand yet. The shift became obvious around 11 a.m. when Rebecca pulled him aside in the break room. People are talking, she said quietly. Ethan poured coffee. About what? About you and Victoria. He nearly dropped the pot. There's no me and Victoria. I know that. You know that. But half the executive floor thinks Victoria's playing favorites because you two have been working closely for 2 months, and she's never worked this closely with anyone. Rebecca lowered her voice further. Marcus heard 2 VPs speculating that you're sleeping with her. That's insane. What? Is it? You got pulled from analytics directly by Victoria. You've been on every major campaign since. She blocked your calendar for a school play, which she's never done for anyone. And last week, someone saw her bringing you dinner in the conference room at 10 p.m. That was takeout. We were both working late. Ethan, I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying other people do. And that's a problem. Ethan set down his coffee, suddenly not thirsty anymore. What am I supposed to do about gossip? Ignore it, probably. But be aware it's happening, and be careful. Victoria doesn't tolerate distractions, and if she finds out people are questioning your work because of rumors about your relationship. Rebecca trailed off meaningfully. She'll what? I don't know, but it won't be pleasant for anyone involved. Ethan spent the rest of the day hyper-aware of every glance, every whispered conversation, every time someone went quiet when he walked past. He'd been so focused on surviving the workload that he hadn't noticed the speculation building around him. That evening, Victoria called an emergency meeting about the Hartwell campaign. The client had rejected the latest creative direction and wanted something completely different with the pitch in 9 days. Marcus looked ready to quit. Rebecca looked ready to murder someone. Ethan just felt tired. We're starting over, Victoria said flatly. New concept, new strategy, full overhaul. I want initial ideas by Wednesday morning. That's impossible, Marcus said. Then do the impossible. That's what I pay you for. Victoria, we've been killing ourselves for weeks, and we'll keep killing ourselves until we deliver something worth presenting. The client is offering $18 million. If we can't handle the pressure, I'll find a team that can. Victoria's eyes swept the room. Are we clear? Nobody argued. After the meeting, Ethan stayed behind. Victoria was gathering her materials, her expression unreadable. Can I talk to you for a minute? He asked. If it's quick. People are talking about us. Victoria looked up sharply. Excuse me? There are rumors that you're giving me preferential treatment, that maybe there's something personal happening. For a moment, Victoria just stared at him. Then she laughed, short, cold, humorless. Let me be extremely clear, Mr. Walker. I don't give preferential treatment. I give opportunities to people who earn them. You've earned them. If anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me directly. She closed her laptop with a snap. As for something personal, that's absurd. You're a means to an end. A talented means, but a means nonetheless. I don't have personal relationships with employees because personal relationships are liabilities. It shouldn't have stung, but it did. Right, Ethan said. Of course. Is there anything else? No, that's all. He left before she could say anything else. The next week was worse than the previous one. The Hartwell campaign consumed everything, and Victoria pushed harder than ever. She was cold, exacting, impossible to please. Every presentation was torn apart. Every idea was insufficient. She worked the team 18-hour days and didn't seem to sleep herself. And through it all, the rumors got louder. Ethan heard them in bathroom conversations, in elevator small talk, in the pointed way certain colleagues looked at him when he left Victoria's office. Someone started calling him the favorite behind his back. Someone else suggested he was only on the team because Victoria had a thing for struggling single fathers. It was destroying his credibility, and there was nothing he could do about it. Thursday night, Ethan was working alone at his new desk. They'd given him an actual office now, small but private, when Marcus knocked on the door frame. "Got a minute?" "Sure." Marcus came in and shut the door, which immediately made Ethan nervous. "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest."
Okay.
"Are you sleeping with Victoria?"
No.
"Have you ever?" "No." "Do you want to?" Ethan hesitated a fraction of a second too long. Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." "It's not what you think. Ethan, I don't care who you sleep with. But Victoria's not just your boss. She's the CEO of a company that's growing fast enough to make enemies. And you're standing right next to her while those enemies look for ammunition. If there's even a perception of impropriety, it hurts both of you. More importantly, it hurts the team." Marcus leaned against the desk. "Whatever's happening or not happening between you two, you need to put distance between yourself and Victoria before this gets worse." "How am I supposed to do that?" "She assigns me to every major project, then request a transfer. Different department, different team, different anything. Because right now, everyone thinks you're only successful because you're sleeping with the boss. And maybe that's unfair, but fair doesn't matter when your reputation is on the line." After Marcus left, Ethan sat in his office staring at his computer screen and feeling the walls close in. Marcus was right. The rumors weren't going away. Every project he worked on with Victoria just fed the speculation. And the worst part was that Ethan didn't even know if there was something to speculate about. He respected Victoria. He was fascinated by her. He'd started looking forward to their late-night working sessions in a way that had nothing to do with career advancement. But that wasn't the same as wanting something more. Was it? Friday afternoon, Ethan requested a meeting with Victoria. She fit him in at 7 p.m., which meant everyone else had gone home, and it was just the two of them in her office with the city lights spreading out below like a circuit board. "What is it?" Victoria asked without looking up from her computer. "I want to transfer to a different team." Now she looked up. "Why?" "Because the rumors are getting worse and they're affecting my work. People don't take me seriously anymore. They think I'm only here because of you. That's idiotic. That's reality." Ethan stayed standing even though there was a chair right there. "I need to prove I can succeed without you. Otherwise, everything I've accomplished means nothing." Victoria closed her laptop slowly. "You want to prove yourself?" "Yes." "By running away?" "By building my own reputation independently." "That's a nice way of saying you're letting gossip dictate your career choices." Victoria stood and walked to the windows, her back to him. "I don't care what people say about me. I stopped caring 15 years ago when I realized that powerful women will always be criticized no matter what they do. You can't control the narrative, so you might as well stop trying."
This isn't about you. It's about me. It's about you being a coward.
"Oh." The words hit like a slap. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. "I'm not a coward for wanting my work to speak for itself." "You are, if you let other people's opinions decide where you belong." Victoria turned to face him. "You're talented, Walker. More talented than most of the people I've worked with. You could have a significant career here, but only if you stop caring what middle managers whisper in break rooms. Easy for you to say. Nobody questions whether you earned your position. Are you joking? Everyone questions whether I earned my position. Every single day. I'm too young, too aggressive, too cold, too ambitious. I only got here because of my looks or my connections, or because I slept with the right people. I've heard every version of it." Victoria's voice was sharp now, cutting. Victoria's voice. "The difference between us is that I don't let it touch me. You're letting it destroy you." "Ishipam, I have a daughter to think about, a reputation to protect. I can't afford to be associated with scandal. There's no scandal. There's just speculation from people with nothing better to do." Then let me transfer. If there's nothing between us, it shouldn't matter." Victoria went very still. "Is that what you think? That there's nothing between us?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ethan didn't know how to answer, because the truth was complicated and messy, and completely inappropriate given that Victoria was his boss, and he was a single father who couldn't afford to make mistakes that would cost him everything he'd worked for. I think we work well together professionally, he finally said. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she picked up her phone and made a call. Diana, transfer Ethan Walker to the Quantum Account team effective Monday. He'll be reporting to James Morrison. She hung up without waiting for acknowledgement. Done. You want distance? You have it. Victoria, get out of my office, Walker. Her voice was ice. Ethan left. He drove home feeling like he'd just made either the smartest or stupidest decision of his life, and he had no idea which. Mrs. Ramirez was watching television when he walked in. Lily was already asleep. You look terrible, Mrs. Ramirez said. I feel terrible. Work? Always work. She patted the couch next to her. Sit. Tell me. Ethan sat. And then, because Mrs. Ramirez was basically the only person he trusted completely, he told her everything. The rumors, the transfer request, the fight with Victoria, the complete mess his life had become since that night at Vertex. Mrs. Ramirez listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Do you love her? She finally asked. What? No, I don't even know her. That's not what I asked. I can't love her. She's my boss. I have Lily to think about. It would be a disaster. So that's a yes. Ethan put his head in his hands. I don't know what it is. Then you need to figure it out, because running away doesn't solve anything. It just moves the problem to a different room. She was right. Ethan knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. Monday morning, he reported to James Morrison and the Quantum Account team. James was professional, competent, and completely uninterested in drama. The team welcomed Ethan without suspicion. The work was challenging but manageable. It should have been perfect. Instead, Ethan felt like he was sleepwalking through every day. He didn't see Victoria in the halls. She didn't email him. She didn't acknowledge his existence at all. It was exactly what he'd asked for. It felt like punishment. 3 weeks passed. Ethan threw himself into the Quantum Account and tried not to think about Victoria. He picked Lily up from school every day at 3:30. They had dinner together. He helped with homework. He read bedtime stories. He was being the father he'd always wanted to be. So why did it feel like something essential was missing? Then one Tuesday afternoon, Lily fell off the monkey bars at recess and broke her arm. The school called Ethan at 2:15. He was in his car 7 minutes later, driving too fast through traffic while his heart tried to punch through his rib cage. They met the ambulance at County Medical, and Lily was crying and scared and kept asking if her arm would be okay. It's going to be fine, sweetheart, I promise. But Ethan had no idea if that was true. They took Lily for x-rays. Confirmed fracture, needed a cast, 6 to 8 weeks of healing. She was brave through most of it, but fell apart when they actually set the bone. Ethan held her good hand and felt completely helpless while she sobbed into his shoulder. By 6 p.m., they were finally done. Lily had a bright purple cast and a prescription for pain medication and instructions for follow-up appointments. Ethan carried her to the car because she was exhausted and hurting, and she was still his baby, even if she was getting too big to carry. He was buckling her into her seat when his phone rang. Victoria. Ethan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Walker. Diana told me about Lily. Is she okay? Ethan looked at his daughter, already half asleep in her car seat with her purple cast resting on a pillow. Broken arm. She'll be fine. Which hospital? County Medical. But we're leaving now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Victoria, you don't need to... She'd already hung up. Ethan stood in the parking lot holding his phone and trying to understand what had just happened. Then he got in the car and waited. Victoria's black Mercedes pulled up 8 minutes later. She got out wearing a suit that probably cost more than his car, completely out of place in the hospital parking lot, and walked straight to Ethan's passenger window. He rolled it down. How is she? Victoria asked. Sleeping. It's been a long day. Victoria looked past him at Lily in the back seat, her expression softening in a way Ethan had never seen before. She's little. She's 8. I know. I forgot how small 8 is. Victoria pulled her attention back to Ethan. Have you eaten? No. Then follow me. There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Lily can sleep in this car and we can get food. Victoria, don't argue. You look like you're about to collapse and I'm hungry. This isn't a debate. She walked back to her car before Ethan could protest. He followed because he was too tired to do anything else. The diner was exactly the kind of place Ethan expected. Vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, coffee that had been sitting too long. They sat by the window where Ethan could see his car and make sure Lily was okay. Victoria ordered coffee and a sandwich. Ethan ordered the same because his brain was too fried to look at a menu. "I'm sorry," Victoria said. Ethan looked up. "For what?" "For what I said in my office. You're not a coward. You were protecting your daughter's future and your own reputation. That's not weakness. That's responsibility." "I shouldn't have transferred." "Yes, you should have. You were right. People were talking and it was affecting your work. I just didn't want to admit you were right, because it meant admitting that what other people think actually matters sometimes." Their coffee arrived. Ethan doctored his with cream and sugar while Victoria drank hers black. "Why are you here?" Ethan asked. "Because your daughter broke her arm and you shouldn't be alone." "We barely know each other outside of work." "That's not true. I know you take your coffee with cream and sugar after 6 p.m. I know you count to 5 when you're stressed. I know you check your phone every 20 minutes to see if Lily's school called. I know you're a better father than you give yourself credit for and a better strategist than most people realize." Victoria paused. "I know more about you than I know about most people." Ethan set down his coffee cup. "Why?" "Because I pay attention to things that matter." "And I matter?" Victoria met his eyes directly. "Yes." The word landed between them like a confession. Their food arrived. They ate in silence while the diner hummed around them, conversations and clinking silverware and a radio playing something old and familiar. Outside, the sky had gone full dark and Lily was still sleeping in the car, her purple cast visible through the window. "I missed working with you," Ethan said quietly. "I missed working with you too, Chit. Is that allowed for a CEO to miss working with a transferred employee? Probably not. I don't particularly care." Victoria finished her sandwich and checked her watch. "You should get Lily home." "Yeah." They paid and walked back to their cars. Victoria stood beside her Mercedes with her keys in her hand, looking uncertain for the first time since Ethan had met her. "The Hartwell pitch is next week," she said. "If you wanted to consult on the strategy, I wouldn't be opposed." "Joe?" "Bye, Pam. Marcus would murder me." "Marcus will do what I tell him." Victoria opened her car door, then paused. "Think about it." She drove away before Ethan could respond. He stood in the parking lot watching her taillights disappear and realized with absolute certainty that Mrs. Ramirez had been right. He was in love with Victoria Sinclair, and he had no idea what to do about it. Ethan didn't consult on the Hartwell pitch. He told himself it was because he needed to focus on the quantum account and taking care of Lily while her arm healed. Those were both true, but they weren't the real reason. The real reason was that Victoria Sinclair had shown up at a hospital parking lot because his daughter broke her arm, and Ethan had no idea how to process that. So he did what he always did when things got complicated. He buried himself in work and pretended everything was fine. Lily adjusted to the cast faster than Ethan adjusted to anything. Within 3 days, she'd figured out how to do most things one-handed and had collected 17 signatures on the purple plaster, including one from Mrs. Ramirez that took up half the forearm space. She complained about itching and about not being able to go on the monkey bars, but mostly she was resilient in that way kids are when adults would still be falling apart. "Emma says I look like a superhero," Lily announced at breakfast one morning, holding up her cast proudly. "You are a superhero," Ethan said, pouring cereal. "What's my power?" "Being brave even when things are scary." Lily considered this seriously. "That's a good power. The best power. Us." She smiled and went back to eating her cereal left-handed, spilling only a little bit of milk on the table. Ethan watched her and felt the familiar guilt that had been his constant companion since the divorce. He was doing his best. His best just never felt like enough. Work on the quantum account was steady and uncomplicated, which should have been a relief. James Morrison was a good manager, clear expectations, reasonable deadlines, none of the intensity that came with working directly for Victoria. The team was collaborative without being dramatic. Everything was professional and functional and exactly what Ethan had said he wanted. He hated it. Not the work itself, which was fine. Not the people, who were perfectly pleasant. He hated that every morning he walked past the executive strategy floor and didn't go in. He hated that he never saw Victoria in meetings anymore. He hated that his phone didn't light up with her texts at odd hours, asking for his opinion on something. He'd asked for distance and gotten it, and now distance felt like the worst possible outcome. 2 weeks after Lily's accident, Marcus caught Ethan in the break room. "You look miserable," Marcus said, pouring coffee that was somehow always burnt no matter what time of day you got it.
"I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." "How's the quantum account?" "Fine." "You said fine twice in 8 seconds. That's how I know you're definitely not fine." Marcus leaned against the counter. "The Hartwell pitch is tomorrow. Victoria's been working on it non-stop. Rebecca says she's barely sleeping." Ethan opened the refrigerator to get the milk he didn't actually need. "I'm sure she'll be brilliant. She's asking for you." Ethan nearly dropped the milk carton. "What?" "Not directly. She's too proud for that. But she keeps bringing up your name in strategy meetings, asking what Walker would think about messaging, whether Walker would approve the creative direction. Diana says she's gone through your reports from the Gravitas campaign at least 3 times this week." "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus shrugged. "Because whatever happened between you two, it's not working for either of you. You're wandering around looking lost and she's working herself to death. And before you say there's nothing between you, save it. I don't care if you're sleeping together or in love or just weirdly codependent. I care that 2 talented people are making themselves miserable because they're too stubborn to admit they work better together. The rumors are dying down now that you're not working together. Mission accomplished. Everyone's moved on to speculating about whether the CFO is embezzling, which he definitely isn't, but that's more interesting than your situation." Marcus dumped sugar into his terrible coffee. "Come to the pitch tomorrow. Victoria won't ask, but she wants you there." "How do you know?" "Because I've worked with her for 4 years, and I've never seen her check her phone as much as she has since you transferred. She's waiting for you to reach out." Marcus headed for the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I think you're good for her. I think she's good for you too, in a terrifying sort of way. Stop overthinking it." He left Ethan standing in the break room holding a milk carton and wondering when his life had become a situation that required other people to intervene. That night, after Lily went to bed, Ethan sat on his couch staring at his phone. Victoria's number was right there. He could text her, ask how the pitch prep was going, offer to review the presentation. Something. Instead, he opened his laptop and pulled up the Hartwell campaign files he still had access to. He spent 3 hours going through the strategy documents and creative briefs, making notes in the margins about messaging consistency and target demographic alignment. Things Victoria probably already knew. Things she definitely didn't need his help with. But he made the notes anyway and emailed them to her at midnight with a subject line that just said, FWIW. Mas. Her response came 14 minutes later. "Thank you, this helps. Tomorrow 9 a.m. if you want to be there." No signature, no explanation, just an invitation that wasn't quite an invitation. Ethan stared at the message for 5 full minutes before typing back. "I'll be there." The Hartwell pitch was scheduled for 9:30 a.m. in the main conference room. Ethan arrived at 8:45, which gave him time to grab coffee and try to convince himself this wasn't a mistake. The executive strategy floor felt both familiar and foreign, like visiting a house you used to live in. Rebecca saw him first, her face lit up. "Walker, you came." "Marcus said I should." Marcus was right. "Come on, we're setting up." The conference room was organized chaos, presentation materials spread across the table, laptops running final checks, Marcus arguing with the AV tech about screen resolution. Rebecca pulled Ethan into the prep immediately, asking his opinion on slide order and messaging emphasis. It felt like coming home. Victoria walked in at 9:15. She saw Ethan immediately. For a fraction of a second, her expression shifted. Surprise, relief, something else he couldn't name, before settling back into her usual controlled neutrality. "Mr. Walker, good of you to join us. Happy to help." "Then help. We have 12 minutes before the client arrives and Marcus is convinced the creative deck is in the wrong order."
It wasn't in the wrong order, but Ethan and Marcus argued about it anyway while Rebecca pulled additional data visualizations and Victoria reviewed talking points with her usual laser focus. By the time the Hartwell executives arrived, the team was synchronized in that way that only comes from working together under pressure. The pitch was 90 minutes long. Marcus led the creative presentation with his usual confident charm. Rebecca backed him up with analytics that were airtight. Victoria commanded the room in a way that made it clear why she was running a company at 30 years old. And when one of the Hartwell executives asked a question about demographic targeting that could have derailed the entire pitch, Ethan stepped in with an answer that turned the challenge into an opportunity. "That's actually our competitive advantage," he said, pulling up the relevant data. "You're not trying to reach everyone. You're targeting the specific segment that values innovation over tradition. That focus lets you dominate that space instead of diluting your message trying to appeal to everyone." The executive nodded slowly. "Interesting approach. It's the only approach that makes strategic sense given your budget and timeline." Victoria caught his eye across the table. She didn't smile, but something in her expression said "thank you" louder than words. The Hartwell team asked more questions. The Meridian team answered every single one without hesitation. By the time the pitch ended, Ethan could feel it. They'd won. The Hartwell executives were leaning in instead of checking phones. They were asking about implementation timelines instead of pushing back on strategy. "We'll have a decision by end of week," the CEO said, shaking Victoria's hand. "Impressive work." After they left, the conference room erupted. Marcus fist pumped. Rebecca actually hugged Victoria, who looked startled but didn't pull away. The energy was electric. "We crushed that," Marcus said. "Absolutely demolished it." "Don't celebrate until the contract's signed," Victoria said, but even she looked pleased. Rebecca started packing up laptops. Marcus was already on his phone updating the rest of the team. Victoria walked over to where Ethan was gathering his notes. "Your timing was perfect," she said quietly. "I read your brief. You set it up perfectly. Still, thank you for being here. I should have been here all along." Victoria studied him for a moment. "Walk with me." It wasn't a question. She left the conference room and Ethan followed her down the hallway, past the elevator banks, to her office. Diana was at her desk but didn't look up as they passed. Victoria closed the office door behind them. "I made a mistake," she said before Ethan could speak. "What?" "Letting you transfer, pushing you away, all of it." Victoria walked to her window, keeping her back to him. "You were right that the rumors were a problem, but I handled it wrong. I should have addressed it directly instead of punishing you for protecting yourself. You didn't punish me. You approved my transfer." "I approved it and then proceeded to be coldly professional for 3 weeks because I was angry that you wanted distance from me. That's punishment, Walker. I'm self-aware enough to admit it." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Victoria Sinclair didn't apologize. She didn't admit mistakes. She definitely didn't acknowledge being angry about personal matters. "Why were you angry?" he asked. Victoria turned to face him. "Because for the first time in 15 years, I actually enjoyed working with someone. Not just respected them professionally, but genuinely looked forward to seeing them every day. And then you left and I was alone again." She paused. "I'm always alone. I've built a life where that's normal. But after working with you, alone felt different. It felt wrong." Ethan's heart was doing something complicated in his chest. "Victoria, let me finish. I don't do this often, and I'm not good at it." She crossed her arms, a defensive gesture that didn't match her confident posture. "I know this is inappropriate. You have a daughter to think about. You have a career to protect. Getting involved with your CEO is a terrible idea by every professional standard. I understand all of that."
"Then why are you telling me this?"
"Because you showed up at a hospital parking lot with a daughter who broke her arm, and all I could think was that I wanted to be there for you. Not because it was strategic or because it helped the company, but because you mattered to me and I couldn't stand the thought of you handling that alone." Victoria met his eyes directly. "And then you sent me notes at midnight about the Hartwell campaign, and I realized that you were thinking about me too. Even after transferring, even after everything." "I haven't stopped thinking about you since the night we met," Ethan admitted. "It's been making me insane." "Good. That makes two of us. They stood there in her enormous office with the city sprawling below them, and Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of something that would either save him or destroy everything he'd built. I have Lily to think about, he said carefully. She's the most important thing in my life. I can't bring someone into her world who isn't going to stay. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'm not asking for casual. I'm not interested in casual. Neither am I. Victoria's voice was steady. I'm 30 years old and I've built an empire instead of a life. I don't know how to do relationships. I'll probably be terrible at it. But I'd like to try. With you. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Fear and hope and the dizzy sensation of jumping without knowing where he'd land. This could blow up spectacularly, he said. It could. Are you willing to risk it? Are you? Victoria smiled, a real smile, not the corporate one she wore in meetings. I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't. Ethan closed the distance between them in 3 steps. Victoria didn't move, just watched him approach with those sharp, calculating eyes that had terrified him 4 months ago and fascinated him now. If we do this, we do it right, Ethan said. No hiding, no pretending it's just professional. And Lily has to be okay with it or it doesn't happen. Agreed. And if it becomes a problem at work, then we handle it together. Ethan reached for her hand. Victoria let him take it, her fingers cool and steady against his palm. I'm terrified, he admitted. Me too. Good. At least we're honest about it. He kissed her then, right there in her office with the blinds open and the city watching. Victoria kissed him back like she'd been thinking about it for weeks, which she probably had. It was tentative and certain at the same time, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise and a question all at once. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria looked slightly dazed. That was, yeah, we should probably discuss logistics. Probably, yes. But neither of them moved. They just stood there holding hands in Victoria's office like teenagers instead of adults with careers and responsibilities and a daughter who would need time to adjust to this development. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Ramirez. How did the pitch go? Also, Lily wants to know if she can have a friend over after school. Reality came flooding back. Ethan had a daughter waiting for him, a life outside this office. Responsibilities that didn't pause just because he'd decided to pursue the most complicated relationship of his life. I have to pick up Lily, he said. I know. Are you free tomorrow night? For dinner? You could meet her properly. Victoria's expression flickered with something that looked like nervousness. I'm not good with children. Lily's not complicated. She mostly talks about dinosaurs in her favorite YouTube videos. You'll be fine. What if she doesn't like me? She'll like you, but she'll also grill you about your intentions, because Mrs. Ramirez has been teaching her about being a strong, independent woman who doesn't take nonsense from anyone. I'm genuinely afraid now. Good. Keeps you humble. Ethan squeezed her hand once before letting go. Tomorrow, 6:30, I'll cook. You cook? I'm a single father. Of course I cook. It's mostly pasta, but it's edible pasta. Victoria laughed, real and startled and completely unexpected. Edible pasta sounds perfect. Ethan left her office, feeling like he was floating 3 inches above the ground. Diana looked up as he passed and gave him a knowing look that suggested she'd figured out exactly what had happened behind that closed door. Ethan didn't care. Let people speculate. For once in his life, he was doing something because it felt right instead of because it was safe. The afternoon was a blur of quantum account work that Ethan barely focused on because his brain kept replaying that conversation in Victoria's office. By the time 3:30 rolled around, he was useless. He grabbed his jacket and headed out to pick up Lily. She was waiting with Emma when he arrived, both of them comparing cast signatures like they were trading cards. Dad, Emma got to sign near my elbow. That's the premium spot. Very premium, Ethan agreed, signing the pickup sheet. They drove home with Lily chattering about her day. Someone brought a lizard for show and tell. They started learning long division, which was hard but not impossible. And could she please get a lizard because Sarah's lizard was really cool, and she promised she'd take care of it. We'll think about the lizard, Ethan said, which was parent code for absolutely not, but I don't want to argue right now. At home, Lily settled at the kitchen table with her homework while Ethan started on dinner. Spaghetti with marinara sauce, garlic bread, the kind of simple meal he could make without thinking. He was halfway through boiling water when Lily looked up from her math worksheet.
Dad, are you happy? The question caught him completely off guard. What? Are you happy? You seem different today. Like smiley. Ethan set down the pot. I am happy. Why do you ask? Because you haven't been happy for a while. Not really. You've been tired and stressed, and sometimes you look sad even when you're smiling. Lily tilted her head. But today you look actually happy. Did something good happen? Leave it to an 8-year-old to cut straight through every defense. Something did happen, Ethan said carefully. There's someone I'd like you to meet, someone important to me. Lily's eyes went wide. Like a girlfriend? Maybe. Possibly. We're figuring it out. Ethan sat down across from her. Her name is Victoria. She's my boss at work. We've been spending a lot of time together, and I like her. A lot. Is she nice? She's smart and interesting, and sometimes a little scary, but in a good way. Does she like dinosaurs? I have no idea, but I'm sure she'd love to hear about them from you. Lily processed this with the serious concentration she brought to everything important. Is she going to come here? Tomorrow night for dinner, if that's okay with you? What if I don't like her? Then we'll talk about it. Your opinion matters to me more than anything. But if I do like her, does that mean she'll be around more? Probably, yeah. Lily nodded slowly. Okay, she can come to dinner, but I get to ask her questions. Deal. What kind of questions? Like, does she know how to do long division? And what's her favorite dinosaur? And if she hurts your feelings, will she say sorry? Ethan felt his throat tighten. Those are very good questions, sweetheart. Mrs. Ramirez says it's important to vet people. I don't know what vet means, but she says I'm good at it. You're excellent at it. They finished homework and had dinner and watched a nature documentary about prehistoric marine reptiles, which Lily insisted were technically not dinosaurs, but were still very cool. Ethan tucked her into bed at 8:30, and she immediately asked 3 more questions about Victoria before finally falling asleep mid-sentence. Ethan texted Victoria from the hallway outside Lily's room. She wants to know your favorite dinosaur. Be prepared. Victoria's response came 2 minutes later. I don't have one. Is that a problem? You have until tomorrow at 6:30 to pick one. Choose wisely. Your entire future depends on this decision. No pressure then. None whatsoever. Ethan went to bed that night feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hopeful. Not the cautious, fragile hope that came from trying to survive another month. Real hope. The kind that believed things might actually get better instead of just less awful. The next day crawled by at the pace of continental drift. Ethan worked on quantum account deliverables and tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes. Victoria texted him twice, once to confirm she was still coming to dinner, and once to ask if Lily had any food allergies. No allergies. Eats everything except mushrooms. Also, she's going to interrogate you. I've handled hostile corporate boards. I can handle an 8-year-old. This 8-year-old is tougher than any board you've faced. Fair warning. At 5 p.m., Ethan left work early and stopped at the grocery store for ingredients. He was debating between 2 kinds of pasta sauce when Marcus appeared next to him. Walker, fancy meeting you here. Are you following me? No, I also shop for food like a normal human. What's the occasion? Marcus gestured at Ethan's cart, which contained notably more items than his usual bachelor dad shopping trips. Dinner, with Victoria and Lily. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. You're introducing her to your daughter already? We're taking it slow. Meeting your 8-year-old daughter is the opposite of slow. That's basically saying this is serious. It is serious. Good for you, man. Seriously. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I think she'll be great with Lily. Victoria's got that scary, competent thing going, but underneath, she's just lonely. Kids can tell the difference. That's what I'm hoping. Ethan got home at 5:30 and immediately regretted every life choice that led to cooking dinner for his daughter and his incredibly intimidating maybe girlfriend. He made chicken parmesan because it was impressive but not pretentious. Garlic bread because you couldn't go wrong with garlic bread, and a salad because vegetables were important. Lily watched from this kitchen table, already dressed in her favorite purple dress and with her hair in pigtails. Why are you nervous? She asked. I'm not nervous. You're nervous. You keep dropping things. She wasn't wrong. Ethan had dropped a spatula, a spoon, and nearly dropped an entire pan of chicken in the past 20 minutes. I want tonight to go well, he admitted. It will. Stop worrying. You're 8. You're not supposed to be the calm one. Someone has to be. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:30. Ethan wiped his hands on a dish towel, checked his reflection in the microwave door, and immediately felt ridiculous for checking his reflection in a microwave door. I'll get it, Lily announced, racing to the door before Ethan could stop her. He got there just as she pulled it open. Victoria stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual suit, holding a bottle of wine and looking more nervous than Ethan had ever seen her. Hi, Victoria said. You must be Lily. I am. What's your favorite dinosaur? Victoria didn't miss a beat. Ankylosaurus, heavily armored herbivore with a club tail. Underestimated, but highly effective. Lily's face split into a huge grin. That's a really good dinosaur. You can come in. Is she him? We're by sea shots. She stepped aside and Victoria walked into Ethan's apartment, looking around with genuine curiosity. It wasn't much. Small living room, even smaller kitchen, Lily's artwork covering most of the refrigerator, but it was home. It smells amazing, Victoria said. It's just chicken parm. I haven't had homemade chicken parm in probably 15 years. Then you're in for a treat, or a disappointment. Could go either way. Victoria smiled and handed him the wine. Their fingers brushed, and Ethan felt that same electric awareness he'd felt in her office yesterday. Can I help with anything? Victoria asked. You can sit and be interrogated by Lily while I finish cooking. I was hoping we'd ease into the interrogation. No easing. Full intensity, right away. Ethan guided her to the table where Lily was already sitting, her good arm propped on the table and her cast resting on a pillow. I'll be right over here if you need backup. Victoria sat across from Lily and Ethan busied himself with final dinner preparations while listening to his daughter conduct the world's most adorable cross-examination. So your dad's boss? Lily started. I am. Is he good at his job? He's one of the best people I've ever worked with. What does he do? He helps companies tell their stories better, so more people want to use their products and services. Lily considered this. That's like lying, but in a good way? Victoria laughed. That's actually a very accurate description. I'm going to use that in our next strategy meeting. Do you like my dad? Very much. Why? Because he's smart and kind and he works harder than almost anyone I know. He's also very good at knowing what people need even before they know it themselves. That's his dad's superpower, Lily said seriously. He always knows when I'm sad even if I don't say it. That's an excellent superpower. What's your superpower? Victoria thought about it. I'm very good at making decisions fast and sticking to them. Even when they're scary? Especially when they're scary, Lily nodded, satisfied. Do you know how to do long division? I do. Can you help me with my homework tomorrow? If your dad says it's okay. Ethan carried the chicken parmesan to the table, setting it down with probably more force than necessary. Maybe let's see how tonight goes before scheduling tomorrow. But he was smiling. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Lily talked non-stop about school and her broken arm and the YouTube channel she wanted to start about dinosaurs. Victoria listened like it was the most interesting thing she'd heard all week, asking follow-up questions and looking genuinely engaged. Ethan watched them interact and felt something settle in his chest. This could work. It was messy and complicated and definitely not what he'd planned, but it could work. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Victoria her room and her extensive dinosaur collection. Ethan cleaned up the kitchen and could hear them talking through the wall, Lily explaining the difference between carnivores and herbivores, Victoria asking questions that suggested she was actually paying attention. When they came back to the living room 20 minutes later, Lily climbed onto the couch next to Ethan. I like her, she announced. She can stay. Victoria looked genuinely touched. Thank you. That means a lot to me. But if you hurt my dad, I'll be very disappointed in you. That's fair. I'll do my best not to disappoint you. Okay. I'm going to my room now because you probably want to do boring adult talking. Lily hugged Ethan, waved at Victoria, and disappeared down the hallway. Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch with 3 feet of space between them,
suddenly awkward now that they were alone.
She's incredible, Victoria said. You're raising an incredible kid. She likes you. That's not something she gives easily. I was terrified. You hit it well. Years of corporate training. Victoria shifted slightly closer. Thank you for letting me into this part of your life. I know it wasn't easy. It was exactly as terrifying as I expected and somehow also fine. Ethan reached for her hand. We're really doing this? Unless you've changed your mind. I haven't. Neither have I. They sat there on Ethan's worn couch in his modest apartment, with the sounds of Lily getting ready for bed drifting from down the hall. And Ethan thought about how different this was from the world Victoria usually inhabited. No luxury penthouse, no expensive restaurants, just real life in all its messy, complicated glory. This is going to be hard, he said, balancing work and this and Lily and everything else. I know. People are going to talk again. Let them. Your board might have opinions about you dating an employee. My board can have all the opinions they want. I'm still the CEO. Victoria squeezed his hand. I didn't build my career by playing it safe, Ethan. I'm not starting now. Even if it gets messy, especially if it gets messy, sit. Ethan kissed her then, softer than yesterday, with the knowledge that this wasn't just a moment, but the beginning of something that would require work and compromise and more courage than either of them probably had. But they were going to try anyway. When Victoria left an hour later, Lily called from her room. Dad? Ethan walked to her doorway. Yeah, sweetheart? I really do like her. She's not scary at all. Well, maybe a little bit scary, but good scary. Good scary is the best kind. Are you going to marry her? Ethan nearly choked. It's way too early for that question. But maybe someday? Maybe someday. Now go to sleep. Okay, Dad? Yeah? I'm glad you're happy. Ethan felt his throat get tight. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. He closed her door and stood in the hallway of his small apartment, thinking about how his life had completely changed course because of 7 seconds outside a nightclub 4 months ago. Everything that had seemed like a disaster had somehow led here. To Victoria Sinclair knowing his daughter's favorite dinosaur, and Lily giving her approval, and Ethan finally believing that maybe, just maybe, he deserved something good. His phone buzzed. Victoria, thank you for tonight. Lily is wonderful. You're wonderful. I'm terrible at this, but I wanted you to know. Ethan smiled and typed back. You're doing fine, better than fine. See you tomorrow? Breakfast before work? There's a diner near your apartment. You're asking me on a breakfast date? I'm asking you on a breakfast date. Is that weird? It's perfect. 7 a.m.? 7 a.m. Ethan went to bed that night with the strange, unfamiliar sensation of looking forward to tomorrow. Not just surviving it, actually anticipating it. For the first time in 3 years, his life felt like something more than an endless series of obligations. It felt like a life worth living. The breakfast date turned into breakfast dates plural, which turned into Victoria showing up at Ethan's apartment 3 evenings a week with takeout and homework help for Lily. It should have been awkward, the billionaire CEO sitting at a scratched kitchen table helping an 8-year-old with fractions, but somehow it worked. What didn't work was pretending at the office that nothing had changed between them. Ethan had transferred back to the executive strategy team after 2 weeks of Victoria pointedly CCing him on every email and Diana accidentally scheduling him into meetings he technically had no reason to attend. James Morrison had been gracious about it, probably because everyone knew fighting Victoria Sinclair's decisions was like arguing with a hurricane. But being back on her team while dating her created exactly the problem Ethan had tried to avoid in the first place. The rumors started up again immediately. Except now they were worse because they were true. People whispered in hallways. Colleagues gave him looks that ranged from envious to disgusted. Someone started a betting pool about how long it would last before the relationship imploded and took both their careers with it. Marcus pulled Ethan aside 3 weeks into the new arrangement. They were in the break room at 6 a.m. because that was the only time it was empty enough for private conversations. You need to do something big, Marcus said without preamble. Good morning to you too. I'm serious, the entire company thinks you're Victoria's pet project.
You need a win that's unmistakably yours, something nobody can attribute to her influence. Ethan poured coffee that was actually decent for once. I'm working on the Anderson campaign. That's mine. Anderson is small. 18-month contract, low seven figures. You need something that matters. Marcus leaned against the counter. TechCore is looking for a new firm to handle their complete brand repositioning. $35 million over 5 years. Meridian's been trying to land them for 2 years with no luck. So you pitched them. Solo. No Victoria involvement, no executive strategy team backup, just you. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Ethan an email. I have a contact at TechCore. I can get you a meeting, but you have to want it. Ethan stared at the email. TechCore was massive, a tech giant with products in every market sector and a reputation for being impossible to impress. Landing them would be career-defining. It would also be terrifying. Why are you doing this? Ethan asked. Because you're good at your job and people need to see that. Also, because I like you and Victoria together, which means I want both of you to survive this without destroying each other professionally. Marcus shrugged. Plus, if you land TechCore, I get to say I recommended you, and that makes me look smart. Always an angle with you. Always. So are you interested or not? Ethan thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Get me the meeting. He didn't tell Victoria. Not because he was hiding it, but because Marcus was right. This needed to be completely separate from her. If he failed on his own. If he succeeded, nobody could claim she'd handed him the win. The TechCore meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Ethan spent every spare moment preparing, building a pitch from scratch, without using any of Meridian's existing TechCore materials. He worked late nights after Lily went to bed, researching their market position and their competitors and the gaps in their current brand strategy. Victoria noticed he was distracted but didn't push. She'd come over for dinner on Tuesday and found him surrounded by papers at the kitchen table while Lily watched a movie in the living room. What's all this? Victoria asked, setting down the Thai food she'd brought. Work project. New client pitch. Need help? No, I've got it. Thanks, though. She looked at him for a moment with that analytical expression that meant she was reading between every line. Then she just nodded. Okay, let me know if that changes. She didn't ask which client or offer unsolicited advice or insert herself into his process. Ethan loved her a little bit more for that. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold. Ethan wore his best suit, which still wasn't as nice as the suits the TechCore executives probably wore to casual Fridays, and drove to their downtown headquarters with his laptop and his pitch deck and enough nervous energy to power a small city. The meeting was at 10 a.m. 2 executives, Susan Park, Chief Marketing Officer, and David Chen, VP of Brand Strategy. Both of them looked exactly as intimidating as their titles suggested. Ethan set up his presentation and tried not to think about the fact that landing this contract would change his entire career trajectory. Thanks for meeting with me, he started. I know Meridian has pitched you before without success. I'm not here to rehash those pitches. I'm here because I think everyone's been approaching TechCore wrong. Susan raised an eyebrow. That's a bold opening. It's an honest one. Every firm you've talked to has probably told you that you need to modernize your brand, appeal to younger demographics, compete with newer companies doing flashier things. Ethan pulled up his first slide. But that's not your problem. Your problem is that you're so big and so established that you're invisible. People use your products every day and don't think about you at all. You're infrastructure, and infrastructure is boring. David leaned forward. So your pitch is that we're boring. My pitch is that being boring is your greatest asset if you position it correctly. Ethan walked them through his strategy, reframing TechCore not as a tech company trying to be cool, but as the foundation that made innovation possible. Reliability as a luxury. Stability as the ultimate status symbol in an industry obsessed with disruption. He showed them mock-ups, campaign concepts, data supporting every claim. He'd spent 2 weeks on this pitch, and it showed. Susan and David asked hard questions. Ethan answered every single one without hesitation. An hour into the meeting, he could feel them shifting from skeptical to interested. This is different from what we've seen, Susan said finally. Most firms want us to chase trends. You're telling us to own the opposite space. Because that's where you win. Let the startups chase trends. You provide the foundation they're all building on. And you think you can execute this alone? No, I'd need a team. But I'd be the lead strategist. This is my concept, my strategy, my vision. Ethan met her eyes directly. I'm not pitching you Meridian Industries. I'm pitching you me. David smiled slightly. Confident? Accurate? They thanked him for his time and said they'd be in touch. Ethan packed up his materials and left without any idea whether he'd nailed it or completely bombed. The uncertainty followed him back to the office, through the rest of his workday, all the way home where Lily demanded he help her build a complicated dinosaur diorama for school. You're not focusing, Lily complained, watching him glue a tree in the wrong spot for the third time. Sorry, sweetheart. Long day. Well, is it because of your work thing? Yeah. Did you mess it up? I don't know yet. Lily patted his hand with her good one, her cast now covered in so many signatures you could barely see the purple underneath. You probably did good. You're smart. Thanks, kiddo. Also, Victoria texted me. She's coming over Friday to help with my science project. Ethan looked up from the diorama. Victoria texted you? She gave me her number last week in case I ever needed to reach her when you're busy. Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. It's good, actually. Ethan went back to gluing trees and tried not to think about the fact that his daughter and his girlfriend had their own separate text conversation going. That was either wonderful or terrifying. Possibly both. Friday evening, Victoria showed up with supplies for Lily's science project, a model solar system that required painting styrofoam balls and suspending them at accurate distances. Ethan watched them work together at the kitchen table, Victoria helping Lily mix paint colors while explaining orbital mechanics in terms an 8-year-old could understand. So Jupiter is big, but Saturn has better rings? Lily asked, carefully painting a red spot on her Jupiter ball. Saturn's rings are more visible, but Jupiter technically has rings too. They're just much thinner. Victoria held up the reference photo they were working from. And Jupiter has the Great Red Storm, which has been raging for at least 400 years. That's a long time for a storm. It's a very persistent storm. Lily giggled. Like how Dad is persistent when I don't want to do my homework? Exactly like that. Oh, Ethan was making dinner, stir-fry because it was fast and he could make enough for 3 people without much effort, and listening to them talk. This was his life now. Victoria Sinclair sitting at his kitchen table helping his daughter paint planets on a Friday night. It still felt surreal. His phone rang. Unknown number. Ethan almost sent it to voicemail, but something made him answer. Ethan Walker. Mr. Walker, this is Susan Park from TechCore. Do you have a moment? Ethan's heart stopped. Yes, absolutely. We've reviewed your pitch and discussed it extensively with our executive team. We're impressed. Susan paused, and Ethan held his breath. We'd like to move forward with Meridian Industries. Specifically, we'd like you to lead the engagement. $35 million over 5 years, starting next quarter. Ethan had to sit down. Thank you. That's incredible. We'll send over the preliminary contract on Monday. Congratulations, Mr. Walker. You earned this. After she hung up, Ethan just sat there staring at his phone while his entire reality reorganized itself around this new information. He'd done it. He'd landed the biggest client of his career completely on his own merit. Victoria was watching him from the table. Good news? I just landed TechCore. Her face lit up, genuine, unguarded joy that Ethan had never seen on her before. You what? TechCore. $35 million, 5 years. They want me to lead it. Victoria stood and crossed the kitchen in 4 steps, pulling Ethan into a hug that was probably too unprofessional for someone who was technically still his CEO. Ethan didn't care. Neither did she. I'm so proud of you, she said against his shoulder. I did it without your help. That was the point. I know. That's why I'm proud. Victoria pulled back to look at him. You just proved that everything you've accomplished is yours. Nobody can take that from you now. Lily appeared next to them, paint on her hands and curiosity on her face. What's TechCore? It's a really big company that just hired your dad to make them better at telling people how awesome they are, Victoria explained. So Dad got a promotion? Something like that. Does that mean we can finally get a lizard? Say it. Ethan laughed, startled and genuine. We're still not getting a lizard. Worth a try. They finished the solar system project and had dinner, and Lily fell asleep on the couch halfway through a documentary about the Jurassic period. Ethan carried her to bed while Victoria cleaned up the kitchen, and when he came back, she'd poured them both wine and was standing by the window looking out at the city. "You didn't have to clean," Ethan said, taking the glass she offered. "I know, I wanted to." Victoria turned to face him. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you happy? Really happy? Not just okay or managing or surviving, but actually happy?" Ethan thought about it. 3 months ago, he'd been drowning in debt and exhaustion and the crushing weight of single parenthood. Now he had a career that actually meant something, a daughter who was thriving, and someone who showed up to help paint planets on a Friday night. "Yeah," he said, "I'm really happy. Are you?" Victoria smiled, soft and real, and so different from the Ice Queen CEO persona she wore at work. "I spent 15 years building a company and telling myself that was enough, that success meant not needing anything else. Then I met you and Lily and realized I'd been lying to myself." She set down her wine glass. "I'm happy in a way I didn't know was possible. It's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Good, definitely good." Well, Ethan kissed her there in his small kitchen with the sounds of the city humming outside and his daughter sleeping down the hall. It felt like the most normal thing in the world, and also like something precious that needed to be protected. The TechCore win changed things at work exactly the way Ethan hoped it would. People stopped looking at him like Victoria's charity case and started treating him like someone who'd earned his position. The whispers didn't stop completely. People would always gossip, but they shifted from skeptical to curious. How did Walker land TechCore? What's his secret? Is he actually that good? Marcus started calling him the miracle worker, and Rebecca admitted she'd won $50 betting that he'd succeed. Even the executives who'd been coldly professional before started acknowledging him in meetings. But the real victory came 2 weeks later when Victoria's board requested a meeting with her about her relationship with an employee. Ethan didn't know about the meeting until afterward. Victoria came to his office at 7 p.m., looking tired and angry and defiant all at once. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door. Ethan's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "My board happened. They've heard the rumors about us, and they're concerned about optics and potential conflicts of interest and a dozen other corporate liability issues." Victoria sat in the chair across from his desk. "They strongly suggested I end the relationship or relocate you to a different company. And what did you say?" "I told them that you just landed the second biggest client in company history completely independently, that you're one of the most talented strategists we have, and that my personal life is not up for board approval as long as it doesn't interfere with company performance." Victoria's jaw was tight. Then I reminded them that I'm still the majority shareholder and CEO, and they work for me, not the other way around. How did they take that? About as well as you'd expect. They're not happy, but they backed down. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "This is going to keep happening. Every time we get comfortable, someone's going to challenge it." "Probably." "And you're okay with that? Constantly defending us to people who think it's inappropriate?" Victoria met his eyes. "Ethan, I spent 30 years doing everything I was supposed to do. Building the right company, making the right deals, maintaining the right image. And I was successful and miserable and completely alone." She leaned forward. "You and Lily are the first things I've chosen for myself in 15 years. I'm not giving that up because my board is uncomfortable. Even if it causes problems, especially if it causes problems, some things are worth fighting for." Seats. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, the last remnants of doubt dissolving completely. "I love you." He hadn't meant to say it. The words just came out, honest and inevitable. Victoria went very still. "What?" "I love you. I'm in love with you. Have been for a while now, probably since you showed up at that hospital parking lot." Ethan stood and walked around the desk. "I know this is complicated and messy and not what either of us planned, but I love you anyway." Victoria stood too, and for a moment she just looked at him with an expression that was equal parts terrified and hopeful. "I've never said that to anyone who wasn't family." "You don't have to say it back, but I want to." Victoria took his hands. "I love you too.
I'm probably terrible at it, and I'll mess it up constantly, but I love you. And I love Lily.
You're both the best thing that's ever happened to me. Ethan kissed her, and it felt different from every other kiss. Less tentative, more certain, like something settling into place permanently. They stood there in his office after hours, and Ethan thought about how far they'd both come from that humiliating night at Vertex. How something that should have been a disaster had turned into this. Two people who were building something real despite every professional and personal complication in their way. "Move in with us," Ethan said suddenly. Victoria pulled back. "What?" "Move in. You basically live at my apartment anyway. Your penthouse is lonely and you hate it there. Lily asks every other day when you're coming over. It makes sense." "Ethan, we've been together for 3 months. I know, it's fast. Maybe too fast. But I'm tired of pretending to go slow when we both know what we want." He squeezed her hands. "Move in. Not eventually. Now." Victoria looked at him for a long moment, and Ethan could see her calculating all the risks and logical reasons this was a bad idea. Then she smiled. "Okay. But we do this. Okay? I'll need to talk to Lily first. Make sure she's really comfortable with it. But if she is, then okay, I'll move in." "That's terrifyingly reasonable of you. I'm trying this new thing where I make decisions based on what I want instead of what makes strategic sense. It's working surprisingly well so far." The conversation with Lily happened 2 days later. Victoria came over for dinner, and afterward, while Ethan cleaned up, she sat with Lily on the couch. "Can I ask you something important?" Victoria said. Lily looked up from her dinosaur book. "Okay. How would you feel if I moved in here, like permanently, living here with you and your dad?" Lily's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really. But only if you're okay with it. Would you be here every day?" "Every day. Even breakfast?" "Especially breakfast. I make really good pancakes." Lily considered this with her usual serious concentration. "Would you still help with my homework?" "Of course." "And you'd come to my school stuff?" "If you want me there, I'll be there." "What about when Dad has to work late? Would you be here with me?" "Yes. You'd never be alone." Victoria's voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the emotion underneath. "I want to be part of your family, Lily, if you'll let me." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she launched herself at Victoria, wrapping her good arm around her neck in a hug that nearly knocked them both over. "Yes, you can definitely move in. Can we paint my room? And can we get a puppy? Also, I changed my mind about the lizard. I want a puppy instead." Victoria laughed, hugging Lily back. "We'll talk about the puppy. And yes, to painting your room. What color?" "Whatever color you want." Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway watching his daughter and his girlfriend plan renovations to his apartment, and he felt something he'd almost forgotten existed: complete, uncomplicated happiness. Victoria moved in over the course of 2 weeks. She didn't bring much from her penthouse. Most of her furniture stayed there because Ethan's apartment was already furnished, and she admitted she'd never liked any of it anyway. What she did bring were books and work clothes, and eventually, after Lily campaigned relentlessly, a fish tank with 3 goldfish that Lily immediately named Rex, Trixie, and Professor Scales. The adjustment period was shorter than Ethan expected. Victoria learned his coffee routine, and he learned that she couldn't function before 6 a.m. without at least 20 minutes of silence. Lily taught Victoria how to make her favorite grilled cheese, and Victoria taught Lily about compound interest and investment strategies, which was probably not normal 8-year-old material, but Lily found it fascinating. They painted Lily's room teal with silver stars on the ceiling. They established a Sunday breakfast tradition where they took turns cooking. Victoria installed a better shower head and bought real towels instead of the threadbare ones Ethan had been using since college. It was domestic and mundane and absolutely nothing like the life Victoria had built for herself over 15 years. She loved every minute of it. 4 months after Victoria moved in, Ethan came home from work to find her and Lily building a blanket fort in the living room. They'd used every blanket in the apartment plus several couch cushions and at least 4 chairs. The structural integrity was questionable, but the enthusiasm was undeniable. "What's happening here?" Ethan asked, setting down his laptop bag. "We're building a castle," Lily announced from inside the fort. "Victoria says every castle needs proper engineering, but—" "I said that?" Victoria emerged from the fort with her hair falling out of its usual perfect style
and a genuine smile on her face. I might have mentioned load-bearing walls. Lily took it very seriously. "It's not going to fall down," Lily insisted. 2 seconds later, one entire wall of the fort collapsed. Lily's face fell. Victoria immediately crouched down next to her. "That just means we learned something. The support wasn't strong enough for that corner. Let's try a different approach." They rebuilt together, and this time the fort held. Lily was delighted. Victoria looked proud in that quiet way she got when she'd solved a problem. That night, after Lily went to bed in her newly painted room, Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch, with the blanket fort still standing in the middle of the living room, because nobody had the heart to take it down yet. "I never thought I'd be the kind of person who builds blanket forts," Victoria said. "Life's full of surprises." "I used to think my job was my purpose, that if I wasn't working, I wasn't valuable." Victoria leaned against Ethan's shoulder. "But this, helping Lily with homework and building forts and making pancakes on Sunday, this feels more important than any deal I've ever closed. You can have both, career and family. They're not mutually exclusive." "I'm starting to understand that. It just requires letting go of the idea that I have to be perfect at everything." Victoria smiled. "Lily helped with that. She doesn't care if I mess up as long as I try. Kids are good at perspective." "She is. You raised an exceptional human, Ethan. We're raising her now, both of us." Victoria lifted her head to look at him. "Is that really how you see it?" "Yeah, that's how Lily sees it too. You're not my girlfriend who lives here. You're family." Something in Victoria's expression shifted, softened in a way that Ethan had learned meant she was trying not to cry. She didn't cry, but it was close. "I love you," she said quietly. "Both of you. This whole chaotic, imperfect life we're building. I didn't know I was allowed to want this." "You're allowed to want anything that makes you happy." "Then I want this, forever, if you'll have me." Ethan kissed her there in the living room, with the ridiculous blanket fort and the goldfish tank bubbling quietly and the city sounds drifting through the windows. It felt like a promise. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning in spring, Ethan woke up to find Lily jumping on his bed. Dad, wake up!" He groaned and checked his phone. 7:15. "It's Saturday, sweetheart. Why are we awake?" "Because Victoria made pancakes and she said we're going somewhere special today, but she won't tell me where." Ethan sat up. Victoria was standing in the doorway holding a cup of coffee and looking unreasonably awake for 7:15 on a Saturday. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked. "It's a surprise. Get dressed. We're leaving in 30 minutes. She disappeared before he could ask questions. 37 minutes later, because Lily insisted on changing her outfit twice, they were in Victoria's car heading out of the city. Lily peppered Victoria with questions the entire drive, while Victoria deflected every single one. "Are we going to the beach?" "No." "The zoo?" "No." "Are we getting a puppy finally?" "Nice try, us." They drove for 40 minutes before pulling up to a house in the suburbs. Not a mansion, but a real house with a yard and trees and a porch swing. Victoria parked in the driveway and turned to look at them. "I bought this," she said simply. Ethan stared at the house. "You what?" "I bought it. Last month. I've been working with contractors to renovate it." Victoria's hands were tight on the steering wheel, a tell that she was nervous. "Your apartment is too small for 3 people long term. Lily needs her own space. You need an office that's not the kitchen table. I need us to have a home that's ours, not mine or yours. Ours." Lily was already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Can I see my room?" "Your room is upstairs, second door on the left. It's teal with space for your dinosaur collection and a window seat." Lily bolted out of the car and up to the house. Victoria watched her go, then looked at Ethan. "I should have asked before buying it. That was presumptuous, but I wanted to surprise you and I got carried away and—" Ethan kissed her, cutting off the anxious rambling. "Show me our house." Victoria's smile was relieved and happy, and slightly watery. "Okay, let me show you our house." They walked through together. The house was beautiful, updated but not sterile, with space for living instead of just existing. There was a yard where Lily could play, an office where Ethan could work, a kitchen with actual counter space and appliances that weren't older than Lily. In the master bedroom, Victoria stopped. "I know this is a lot. Moving in together was one thing, but buying a house is perfect."
Ethan said. "This is perfect. You're perfect. This whole ridiculous situation where I accidentally witnessed a wardrobe malfunction at a nightclub and somehow ended up here is perfect." Victoria laughed. "When you put it that way, it sounds insane. It is insane. Best accident of my life. They heard Lily thundering down the stairs. "Dad, there's a yard. Can we get a puppy now, please? Victoria said we'd talk about it." Ethan looked at Victoria. "Did you?" "I might have suggested we'd revisit the puppy conversation after seeing the yard." "You're going soft." "I'm aware. It's terrifying." Lily burst into the room. "So can we get a puppy?" Ethan and Victoria looked at each other. Then Victoria shrugged. "Why not?" Lily screamed so loud, Ethan was pretty sure the neighbors 3 houses down heard it. They moved into the house over Memorial Day weekend. Mrs. Ramirez cried when they told her they were moving out of the apartment, but then cried happy tears when they invited her to visit any time, and suggested she might want to babysit occasionally in a house with an actual guest room. "You did good," she told Ethan while helping pack boxes. "Both of you. You found something real." "I got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You were brave enough to try." House filled up with their combined chaos, Lily's dinosaur posters and Victoria's books, and Ethan's collection of coffee mugs that he refused to throw away despite most of them having cracks. They adopted a puppy from the shelter, a golden retriever mix that Lily named Comet, and who immediately tried to eat Victoria's expensive shoes. Work continued to be demanding but manageable. The TechCore campaign was a success and led to 3 more major clients specifically requesting Ethan as lead strategist. Victoria stepped back from day-to-day operations at Meridian to focus on larger company strategy, which gave her more time at home. They still worked together on some campaigns, but everyone had adjusted to their relationship enough that it was just normal now, instead of scandalous. 1 year after that chaotic night at Vertex, Ethan stood in the kitchen of their house making Saturday morning pancakes while Victoria helped Lily. With a science project at the table, and Comet begged for scraps that he absolutely was not getting. This was his life now. Not perfect. They still argued about work-life balance and whose turn it was to walk the dog, and whether Lily could have dessert before finishing her vegetables. But it was real and messy and full of love in a way that felt sustainable. Victoria caught him staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing. Just thinking." "About?" "About how the worst moment of my life turned out to be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to me." Victoria smiled, that real smile she only showed at home. "Same." Lily looked up from her science project. "Are you guys being mushy again?" "Probably," Ethan admitted. "Gross. I'm going to play with Comet." She ran off, leaving her project half-finished on the table. Victoria stood and walked over to Ethan, wrapping her arms around him from behind while he flipped pancakes. "I never thanked you," she said. "For what?" "For being patient with me. For letting me learn how to be part of a family. For not giving up when I was difficult." "You're still difficult. I'm aware. I love you anyway." "I love you too. Both of you. This whole chaotic, imperfect, beautiful life we built together." Ethan turned off the stove and turned around to face her properly. Through the window, he could see Lily playing with Comet in the yard, her cast long gone, and her laugh carrying through the open door. This house that Victoria bought because she wanted them to have a home. This woman who'd scared him to death a year ago and now was the center of his world. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best destinations. Sometimes 7 seconds of humiliation opened doors you never knew existed. Sometimes the person who terrified you turned out to be exactly who you needed. Ethan had learned that success wasn't measured in campaigns won or contracts signed. It was measured in pancake breakfasts and homework help, and someone showing up consistently, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It was measured in the small moments that added up to a life worth living. Victoria had learned that building an empire meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. That vulnerability wasn't weakness, and love wasn't a liability. That the best investments weren't financial, they were the people who made you want to be home at the end of the day. And Lily, growing up in a house with 2 parents who chose each other and her every single day, would learn that family could be built and rebuilt, and that love was strong enough to create home wherever you found it. The pancakes were burning. Ethan rescued them while Victoria called Lily in for breakfast. They sat around the table in their house with their puppy begging underneath, and their imperfect, beautiful, chaotic family intact. 1 year ago, Ethan had been a struggling single father who thought his life was over after accidentally humiliating a billionaire CEO. Now he was home,